Charlotte Miller was nothing special to look at. At least that's what everyone in Austin, Texas seemed to think. At 38, she was just another single mom driving a 10-year-old Honda Civic with a dent in the passenger door, living in a modest 3-bedroom home in a forgettable subdivision on the outskirts of the city. 5 days a week, she sat behind a desk at Lakeside Community College processing faculty paperwork and answering phones with a gentle administrative services. "How may I help you?" Her colleagues barely noticed her beyond the occasional nod in the hallway or the polite thank you when she distributed mail to their departmental boxes. On weekends, she could be found at her daughter Lily's soccer games, selling homemade cookies at the PTA bake sale, or tending to her small vegetable garden. If anyone had bothered to create a character sketch of Charlotte Miller, unremarkable would have been the first word on the page. She shopped at Target, drove through Whataburger on busy evenings, and occasionally treated herself to a caramel macchiato at the local Starbucks. Her life was so thoroughly ordinary that it was almost invisible, which was exactly how Charlotte wanted it. That Saturday morning had started like any other. Charlotte had made Lily breakfast before dropping her off at a friend's house for a birthday sleepover. She promised her brother David she would finally use his birthday gift to her, a beginner shooting course at Blue Ridge Shooting Range. "You'd live alone with Lily, Char," he'd insisted when she protested the gift. "You should know how to protect yourself. The neighborhood's not getting any safer." Charlotte had reluctantly agreed, though the thought of handling a firearm made her stomach knot with anxiety. Not because she was afraid of guns. No, that wasn't it at all. But because guns brought back memories she'd spent 15 years carefully burying. What the patrons and staff at Blue Ridge couldn't possibly know was that before settling into civilian life, before her failed marriage to Lily's father, before becoming just another mom, Charlotte had another identity entirely. 15 years earlier, she had been Staff Sergeant Charlotte Eli Miller, one of the most decorated female snipers in Marine Corps history, with 3 tours in Afghanistan and a service record that remained partially classified. First shots fired, the trouble started the moment Charlotte pushed open the heavy glass door to the range. The reception area was crowded with weekend warriors, men in tactical gear they'd never need in suburban Austin, showing off expensive firearms and swapping exaggerated stories of marksmanship. Conversations quieted momentarily as she approached the counter, a few raised eyebrows and smirks following her progress across the room. "I'm here for the beginner's safety course," she said quietly to the young man behind the counter. He looked her up and down, barely concealing his amusement. "Ladies' Day isn't until Tuesday," he said, loud enough for others to hear. "But I guess we can fit you in if you're really determined." Heat rose to Charlotte's cheeks, but she simply nodded and filled out the required paperwork, ignoring the chuckles around her. The clipboard trembled slightly in her hands, not from nervousness, but from the effort it took to restrain the cutting response that 15 years ago would have silenced the room. "Oh look, who thinks she can shoot a gun?" came a familiar voice from behind her. Charlotte turned to find Derek Thompson, her next-door neighbor, grinning at her in disbelief. He was standing with a group of friends, all wearing matching shirts from their local gun club, the long-worn Shooters logo emblazoned across their chests. "Aren't you the same woman who screamed when she saw a spider last week? This should be entertaining." His friends joined immediately. "What's next, Charlotte? Monster truck driving?" They snickered, making exaggerated fearful faces, mimicking her supposed fragility. Charlotte forced a smile. "Hello, Derek. Just trying something new." She turned back to the counter, hoping he'd lose interest, but Derek wasn't finished. "Hey guys, remember when she asked me to open a pickle jar because it was too tight? And now she wants to handle a firearm. This I've got to see." The laughter grew louder, attracting more attention. Charlotte kept her eyes down, focusing on the liability waiver she was signing, her hand steady despite the flush of embarrassment spreading across her face. 15 years ago, she could have field-stripped an M4 rifle in under 40 seconds, blindfolded. Now she was being mocked for needing help with a pickle jar. A jar she'd asked for help with only because she'd tweaked her wrist carrying Lily's science project into school that morning. Under fire before Charlotte could escape to the classroom area, she heard another familiar voice. Charlotte Miller at her shooting range? This is too good. Rebecca Sawyer, a former college friend who now ran a popular suburban mom blog, materialized beside her, phone already in hand. Without asking permission, Rebecca snapped several pictures of Charlotte. Wait till the PTA sees this. The quiet cookie baker playing with guns. Charlotte reached out to block the camera. Rebecca, please don't post those. Rebecca rolled her eyes, tucking her phone away but not deleting the photos. Honey, you nearly fainted during our college self-defense class, remember? The instructor had to catch you. She announced this loudly, ensuring everyone nearby heard about Charlotte's supposed incompetence. I'm just here to learn some self-defense, Charlotte explained softly. Rebecca patted her arm condescendingly. Sure, sweetie. Just try not to shoot yourself in the foot. That would make for an awkward bake sale next weekend. Charlotte felt a familiar tension building at the base of her skull, the same tension she used to feel before a mission, but now it was triggered by the effort of restraining herself, of maintaining the facade of meekness she'd cultivated for so long. What Rebecca didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Charlotte had fainted in that self-defense class because the instructor's chokehold had triggered a flashback to a close-quarters combat situation in Kandahar. She dropped to avoid hurting him when her training kicked in. Charlotte slipped away to the classroom for the safety briefing, hoping to escape the growing circle of mockers, only to find more familiar faces. 2 faculty members from the college where she worked were also taking lessons. Professor Jenkins from English Literature and Dr. Ramirez from Physics. They noticed her immediately. Miller from Administrative Services. Professor Jenkins squinted at her through his thick glasses. Didn't you mess up the department budget spreadsheets last month? And now you want to handle a firearm. He turned to Dr. Ramirez with a theatrical whisper. God help us all. Dr. Ramirez at least had the decency to look embarrassed by his colleague's rudeness. But he didn't contradict him either. Charlotte took a seat at the back of the room, wishing she could disappear. The spreadsheet error had been Jenkins' own mistake. He'd submitted incorrect numbers for his department's travel expenses. But Charlotte had taken the blame rather than embarrass him in front of the dean. Now he was using that same mistake to humiliate her in public. Taking fire from all sides, the safety briefing mercifully began. But even the instructor, Wade Simmons, couldn't resist joining the mockery. When it came time for students to introduce themselves and their reasons for taking the course, Wade sighed dramatically when Charlotte's turn came. Look, ma'am, he said after she quietly explained about the break-ins in her neighborhood. We're required to give lessons to anyone who pays. But maybe this isn't your thing. He gestured vaguely at her modest clothing and seemingly nervous demeanor. I've seen your type before. One loud noise, and you'll be running for the exit. Charlotte met his gaze steadily. I'd like to try, she insisted quietly. Wade rolled his eyes. Your funeral, he muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. But don't come crying when the kickback bruises your shoulder. When the class moved to the actual range for practical instruction, things went from bad to worse. The rangemaster, Brock Davidson, a former police officer with a popular online channel about firearms, saw Charlotte enter and immediately spotted an opportunity for content. Hey everyone, we've got ourselves a special guest today, he announced over the PA system, his voice echoing throughout the large space. Suburban mom thinks she's Annie Oakley. All eyes turned to Charlotte as she attempted to prepare her station, fumbling slightly with the unfamiliar rental equipment. Her movements were deliberate, not because she didn't know what she was doing, but because she was forcing herself to act like a novice, suppressing 15 years of muscle memory and training. Brock approached, microphone in hand, his friend filming with a professional camera. And here we see a classic example of why certain demographics struggle with basic firearm operations. he narrated as Charlotte pretended to awkwardly load her rental rifle. Notice the trembling hands, the complete lack of confidence. Charlotte wasn't trembling from fear, but from the effort of restraining herself, of not showing that she could field strip and reassemble this particular model blindfolded in under 40 seconds. When Charlotte intentionally dropped a magazine while loading, buying time as she considered how much longer she needed to maintain this charade, the entire range erupted in laughter. Videos instantly started circulating online with hashtags like #gunfail and #stick-to-the-bake-sales. Planning the counterattack, Charlotte could feel the familiar weight of her past pressing against her chest, demanding acknowledgement. For 15 years, she buried who she really was, had constructed an identity based on what others expected her to be: meek, unremarkable, unthreatening. She'd done it to protect herself, to give Lily a normal life, to escape the nightmares that had followed her home from Afghanistan. But in this moment of public humiliation, with dozens of eyes watching her, judging her, dismissing her, Charlotte felt something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. Anger. Not the hot, explosive anger that leads to rash actions, but the cold, focused anger that made her one of the most effective snipers in her unit. The ability to channel emotion into precision. The range's owner, retired Army Colonel Frank Peterson, emerged from his office to see what the commotion was about. Charlotte felt a momentary hope. Surely a fellow veteran would put a stop to this circus. But Colonel Peterson, seeing only what everyone else saw, a seemingly nervous suburban mom out of her element, joined the chorus instead. "Ma'am, we have liability concerns here," he stated publicly, standing close enough that everyone could hear. "People like you tend to be a safety risk. Maybe try the virtual shooting simulator at the mall instead. It's more appropriate for your capabilities." His dismissal stung worse than the others. He, of all people, should have known better than to judge a book by its cover. Charlotte had served under commanders like him, had earned their respect through demonstrated skill rather than preconceptions. Now, in civilian clothes, with her hair in a ponytail instead of a regulation bun, she was invisible to him as a fellow soldier. The betrayal from someone who should have recognized a kindred spirit, who should have seen beyond the surface, cut deeper than all the previous mockery combined. She felt the military patch inside her jacket like a burning coal against her skin, a reminder of who she had been, who she still was beneath the careful disguise. Two off-duty police officers at the range exchanged knowing looks within Charlotte's earshot. "This is why female officers need different standards," one muttered, loud enough for her to hear. "Some people just aren't built for this." The other nodded in agreement. Next thing you know, they'll let anyone carry a service weapon. Their casual sexism was nothing Charlotte hadn't heard before, but coming on top of everything else, it pushed her closer to her breaking point. The ambush, the final humiliation came when Brock, seeing that Charlotte was about to take her first practice shot, decided to create the ultimate viral moment. "Get that little lady out of here," he shouted, yanking the rifle from her hands. "This ain't no place for housewives." The ammunition Charlotte had carefully loaded spilled across the floor, bullets rolling in all directions. "Women like you should stick to baking cookies, not handling firearms," he sneered, deliberately stepping on her shooting glasses that had fallen in the commotion, crushing them beneath his boot. The entire shooting range erupted in laughter as Charlotte knelt to collect the scattered bullets, her head bowed, her cheeks burning with humiliation. A tight circle formed around her, phones recording her every move. "This will go viral for sure," someone whispered, loud enough for her to hear. Charlotte slowly rose to her feet, a strange calm settling over her features. Her fingers touched the worn military patch sewn into the inside of her jacket, the emblem of her sniper unit, her talisman throughout 3 tours of duty. Her eyes, once soft and accommodating, hardened to steel as she scanned the mocking faces surrounding her. 15 years of hiding, of being invisible, of suppressing who she really was, and for what? To be humiliated by people who couldn't hit a target at 10 yards, if their lives depended on it. People who had never had to hold position for 72 hours without moving, who had never made shots that saved dozens of lives. The weight of her silence suddenly felt unbearable. The laughter reached a crescendo as Brock finished his public mockery of Charlotte. He was about to physically escort her from the building, his hand already reaching for her arm, when the heavy glass door to the range swung open. The perfect shot, the immediate hush that fell over the room was so abrupt, it was as if someone had flipped a switch, silencing the cacophony of mockery in an instant. A tall, distinguished man in a perfectly tailored navy blue suit entered, his silver hair and ramrod straight posture immediately commanding attention. Even without a uniform, his military bearing was unmistakable. General James Harrison, someone whispered in awe. The legendary four-star general, now heading the National Marksmanship Program after a storied career in special operations, was known to every serious shooter in Texas. His presence alone commanded respect, silencing even the most boisterous range enthusiasts. Charlotte felt her heart rate accelerate. Of all the people who could have walked through that door at that precise moment, General Harrison was simultaneously the best and worst possibility. He would recognize her instantly. He had been her commanding officer during her second tour, had personally awarded her several commendations. There would be no maintaining her cover, no salvaging her carefully constructed ordinary life. General Harrison scanned the room with the practiced efficiency of a man who had assessed countless tactical situations, his keen eyes noting every detail. His gaze finally landed on Charlotte, still surrounded by her mockers, still kneeling to collect her spilled ammunition. For a moment, he seemed confused, his brow furrowing slightly, as if trying to reconcile what he was seeing with what he knew. Then recognition dawned in his eyes, quickly followed by something Charlotte recognized immediately. Military outrage, the controlled fury of a commanding officer witnessing the mistreatment of one of his own. Staff Sergeant Miller. His authoritative voice cut through the silence, the question more statement than inquiry. Charlotte straightened instinctively, years of military discipline surfacing despite her civilian clothes and setting. Her spine snapped straight, the chin lifted, her hands falling naturally to her sides in the position of attention. "Yes, sir." The words came automatically, her voice no longer soft and apologetic, but clear and confident. The voice of a soldier responding to a superior officer. The transformation was subtle but unmistakable to anyone watching closely. This was not the same woman who had entered the range an hour earlier. In 2 words, 15 years of careful disguise had been stripped away, revealing the warrior beneath the suburban mom exterior. Brock looked between Charlotte and the general, a nervous laugh escaping him. "Sir, there must be some mistake. This is just Charlotte, a secretary or something from the community college. She's never held a firearm before today." He gestured dismissively toward Charlotte, though his previous cockiness had diminished considerably in the general's presence. General Harrison raised a single eyebrow, a gesture that had made hardened soldiers confess to infractions before they even knew what they were admitting to. "Is that so? Because unless I'm mistaken, I'm looking at Staff Sergeant Charlotte Eagle-Eye Miller, holder of the 3rd highest confirmed long-distance elimination record in Marine Corps history." The silence that followed was profound, broken only by a few gasps and muttered exclamations of disbelief. Charlotte felt her carefully constructed world collapsing around her, but alongside the panic was an unexpected sense of relief. After 15 years of hiding, of being less than she was, the truth was finally breaking free. General Harrison continued, his voice pitched to carry throughout the now silent range. "Staff Sergeant Miller personally saved my entire unit during the Kandahar operation of 2010. Maintained her position for 72 hours in hostile territory without food or water to secure our extraction route." A murmur rippled through the crowd, disbelief mingled with shock, as everyone recalibrated their understanding of the woman they'd been mocking moments before. "That can't be right," Brock protested, though with significantly less conviction. She can barely hold a rifle." He gestured toward the scattered ammunition, the broken glasses. "Look at her." But people were looking, really looking, perhaps for the first time. And what they saw now was different. The perfect posture, the steady gaze, the controlled breathing of someone who had mastered not just firearms but herself. The general's eyes narrowed at Brock's continued skepticism. "Perhaps a demonstration is in order." He turned to Charlotte. "Sergeant, if you wouldn't mind, for old time's sake." Charlotte hesitated, not from uncertainty about her abilities, but from the sudden realization that her carefully constructed anonymity was shattered beyond repair. "It's been a while, sir," she said, her voice steady but quiet. "Like riding a bike, Miller," Harrison said with the confident smile of a man who had seen her capabilities firsthand in the most extreme conditions imaginable. "Some skills never leave you." The aftermath: 10 shots. 10 perfect bullseyes, all while blindfolded. The video of Charlotte's demonstration went viral for very different reasons than her humiliators had intended. Secret Sniper Mom and the humble hero next door flooded social media. Local news stations ran the story on their evening broadcasts, and by Sunday morning, Charlotte's phone was inundated with interview requests from national outlets. Brock Davidson was the first to face consequences for his behavior. His online subscribers abandoned him en masse after his humiliation of a decorated veteran went viral. Sponsors pulled their support from his channel, and the video he'd been so eager to create. Suburban Mom fails at range. Backfired spectacularly. "I didn't know," he attempted to explain in a hastily recorded apology video. All previous bravado gone. "How was I supposed to know she was, that she had been?" He trailed off, unable to complete the thought without acknowledging his own prejudice. Blue Ridge Shooting Range removed his name and image from their website and promotional materials, publicly distancing themselves from his actions, even as they scrambled to reconcile their own role in what had transpired. Rebecca Sawyer's mom blog faced similar backlash. The photos she posted without Charlotte's permission, along with her mocking commentary, were screenshotted before she could delete them. Her public apology included donations to veterans organizations and a feature on the hidden heroes among us. "Why we shouldn't judge books by their covers. I've known Charlotte for years," she wrote, "or at least I thought I did. What I realize now is that I never really saw her at all. I saw what I expected to see, what I wanted to see, not who she actually was." Colonel Peterson, the range owner who had suggested Charlotte try something more appropriate than his docility, arrived at her home shortly after. His apology was more direct, soldier to soldier. "I failed you, Sergeant," he said, standing at what was nearly attention on her front porch. "I saw a civilian woman instead of looking for the warrior underneath. I should have known better." The dean of Lakeside Community College arrived with a formal written apology and an unexpected offer: a new position heading Veteran Support Services at the college. "Your unique perspective would be invaluable in helping service members transition to academic life," he explained. Through it all, Charlotte maintained her dignity and perspective. When offered the chance to publicly condemn her harassers, during a rare interview she granted to a veteran-run podcast, she declined. "We're all more than our worst moments," she told the host, himself a former Navy SEAL. "I serve to protect everyone's freedom, including the freedom to make mistakes and learn from them." Letters poured in from across the country, many from women in male-dominated fields who had faced similar prejudice and dismissal. "Your story gives me courage," wrote a female firefighter from Oregon, "not just because you're skilled, but because you refuse to let their cruelty make you cruel in return." For Charlotte, the most important conversation was with her daughter. "Mom," Lily had asked, wide-eyed when she returned from her sleepover, "why are there videos of you shooting blindfolded all over the internet? And why is everyone calling you a war hero?" Charlotte took a deep breath. "Come sit down, sweetie. There's something I need to tell you about who I was before I was your mom." As Charlotte began sharing her story with her daughter, Not just the highlights General Harrison had revealed, but the full journey of a woman who had served her country with distinction before choosing a quieter path. She realized something important. The anonymity she'd sought for so long had come at a cost. The cost of denying her true self, of allowing others to define her by their limited perceptions. The peace she had sought wouldn't come from hiding who she was, but from integrating all the parts of herself, the warrior and the mother, the hero and the administrative assistant, into one complete, authentic identity. Charlotte Miller would never be just anything again. And that, she decided as she watched understanding and pride dawn in her daughter's eyes, was exactly as it should be. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and become a part of our Everyday Life Stories community, where we celebrate quiet strength, real struggles, and unexpected victories. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below. We love hearing from our amazing viewers around the world.